Hello, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to episode 2 of New Bright Lights, Urban Renewal versus the Downtown East Side. We have 3 speakers today, or sorry, pardon me, 4. Our first up is Michelle Synnot and Laurel Irons. They work with the MAP project. The Mobile Access Project is a 3-year pilot project to address violence against women and sex workers in the Downtown East Side. MAP strives to increase the number of safe places for sex workers, access to violence prevention services, and decreasing preventable deaths, injuries, and illnesses. Last year, MAP's funding was pulled by the provincial government, and they will tell the story of how community action and persistence brought the project back from the brink. And I think we'll just begin there. Thank you very much, and here's Michelle and Laurel.
Hi. So I'm Michelle Synnot. This is Laurel Irons. I'm the coordinator for the Mobile Access Project, and Laurel is the previous coordinator when all the funding stuff happened. Just to give you guys kind of a bit of a background of where I came from in this work. I've been working for the last 4 years for Main City Housing, and for 8 years for the Portland Hotel Society, and since March for WISH now with the MAP van. And Laurel?
Yeah, and I spent 5 years with the MAP van. I'm not with the MAP van anymore, but I spent 3 years as a support worker and driver on the MAP van, and then a couple of years as coordinator before Michelle.
Mm-hmm. So, I guess we can get going on this. So we'll just give you kind of a brief background and sort of describe the MAP van and what we do. So as of March 15th, 2014, then that's our 6th year. The MAP van was created from a call to action by current and former sex workers. It was also a direct response to the case of the murdered and missing women and the ongoing violence faced by sex workers, survival sex workers. The van is staffed by a driver, a support worker, and a peer worker. The peer worker position was designed for women that are considering exiting the sex trade. And often all positions have a peer background, including the coordinator position. We're out 7 nights a week from 10 p.m. till 6 a.m. And we have our route all over Vancouver, the Downtown East Side, Kingsway, Fraser Street, Knight Street, Seymour, Boys Town, and so on. We're trying to expand to new neighborhoods as the strolls are constantly evolving and changing and moving around. We provide support for the women. We do needle exchange. We hand out harm reduction supplies, so clean needles, water, swabs, cookers, condoms, etc., hygiene products. We also do referrals for housing, for other supports, addiction services, drop-in centers, advocacy, other advocacy agencies, and we hand out juice and coffee and clothing and food donations. We also hand out what's called the red light alerts, and we also do the report taking for those. The red light alerts are basically if a woman has a bad date with someone who's been violent, they will come and report it to the van and other agencies as well. And then we compile those weekly into an alert sheet that we hand out to workers that we see. And there's an email list, and a lot of other housing agencies are on it. They also receive our red light alert. 95% of those bad dates reports are taken through the MAP van. We also provide an emergency taxi service for women that need to go to the hospital. We work with WAVA and the sexual assault services to see that women get care if they have been sexually assaulted. Just to kind of give you an idea of how many women we see, in between 2007 and 2008, we made nearly 14,000 contacts with women. So we see quite a few people. And I don't know, Laurel, do you want to talk about the timeline?
Sure. So I might have to refresh my memory as we go along. I've been a little bit removed from this for the last few months. But yeah, so this was last year, correct? March 15th would have been our 5-year anniversary, and shortly after that was the end of our fiscal year when we found out that we were not, funding was not going to be continued. And for a period of a few months, several appeals were made for the funding to be reinstated, and there was no positive response, and really no response, I think. So for a few months, we had to let women know before we kind of took any other action publicly, just to let women know that there was a possibility that we might not be around, and make sure that whatever was going to happen for that point onwards, that their needs could hopefully be met in another way. And then June, we officially let people know through press releases and whatnot, and June 12th was our last day on the road. There was the first of a series of stands for the MAP ban, which was when people gathered on the street, on stroll at places that the MAP ban went to, and where women would be found in support of continuing funding for the MAP ban. So the first of those stands was June 23rd, and then between June and July there was a series of different actions that happened, and kind of spearheaded in different ways by different people as well. So there were petitions, letters, leafleting, campaigns, and so on and so forth. And over the summer there were weekly stands where we met either at Gore and Hastings or at Grandview Park, and just to kind of keep the public eye on what was happening and keep pressure up. And there was a Vancouver City Council vote. It was towards the end of their year, at the end of July, where let's see, I'm not quite sure what anymore what it was exactly, but there was a motion, I think, made to support the funding attempt for the province, and as well to support services for sex workers in general. And then in August, the first contact from the Solicitor General, and found out that we would be coming back. So we had one more stand scheduled, and instead of canceling it, we had it as a celebration, just to say, yeah, here we are still, even though it's good news, let's still come together, and a period of time to kind of reorganize and figure out how we're going to come back. So, and in September, we were actually kind of offered Rhizome to have a kind of thank you celebration, just so we could acknowledge the community for coming together to support the ban and bring us back.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there we go. So these were the sort of timeline of events after finding out there was, as you can see, no more money, and what that looks like. So the uncertainty, the uncertainty, the effect on the program, of course, was, it totally destabilized everything. The staff, of course, this is their job, this is, what they support their families with, so everyone was pretty concerned about that. And then, of course, the effect on the women. Often the MAP van is the only service that the women we see access. So I think they felt pretty alone. And so we started reaching out to policymakers, community agencies, other supporters, reaching out to the women the van sees, the government, the police, and pretty much anyone that we thought could be of assistance. And then there was the stage of mobilizing, so the stands, the rallies, the weekly stands, extensive letter writing campaigns, and the petitions. And then, which resulted in, of course, the return of our funding. And maybe Laurel, you can speak a bit about what was useful in those times, I guess.
With regards to the funding coming back? I can't see what that says, but I guess talking about, what worked, I think really just having such a variety of tactics and having a variety of people as well. So from government and police to staff and friends of staff, the women, people really kind of rally together, and I think that was the biggest thing, was having people at very different levels and very different places kind of coming together and always having a really public presence. And I might be missing something, but maybe it'll come out as we go on.
I think it probably will. So in terms of strategies, so, you know, Laurel, of course, really was quite organized in planning it out and, you know, really figuring out what it was that, you know, was going to create the most attention in the public eye. In terms of messaging, you know, it's important for government to know that this is an essential service, and that the government can make the difference between life and death. And having multiple fronts, as Laurel was saying before, you know, people advocating with you and for you on all different levels, from right down to from a peer level right to a government level, and to just keep the pressure up, you know, and not sort of roll over and take it. So, what was that government letter?
That was a petition that came through a group of women at WISH, which MAP is administered through WISH, and there was a group of women at WISH that found out that the van was going off the road, and I think immediately they put together this petition, which went through their networks, our networks, to hotels. It went online, and that was, I think that was, in its entirety, that was the petition, and it got a lot of support, I think, and it's important that it came from the voices of the women themselves.
Yeah. So maybe you can talk a little bit about your allies.
Yeah.
Our allies.
Yeah, this was kind of thinking about with the MAP van, but also when programs do face the threat of losing funding or something like that, just understanding who's out there and how can we support each other when we're doing this work. It's really important to know other support networks that, I mean, I think we intersect anyways, but just, you know, as different people go through their struggles, different organizations go through their struggles, we support them, they support us, and that really helps to not be isolated in this work. So just naturally over time, I think organically, a lot of relationship building and networking happens, and not really realizing it until we face that crunch and kind of seeing like there's actually a lot of awareness of the MAP van and a lot of support for the work that we're doing, and just to have that support really obviously was really nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, just utilizing that. I think it's an organic thing, but it's important to acknowledge.